Hi, welcome to Engage. My name is Pastor John Wayne McMahon, and I'm a new pastor here at Kingwood United Methodist Church. And so this is my first time to do it. I'm really excited to be able to share this moment with you, families, and that's what this Engage video is aimed at, to be able to share with the whole family at home so that we give you an opportunity to look at some scriptures together and pray together. And so that's our prayer with this Engage, that you would gather together and look at some of these things that we bring up and discuss it with yourselves. Not that we give you all the answers, but that you let God teach you some of the things that are through the scriptures. And so that's my hope for that. This morning we're going to be talking about the year of the Lord's favor. And we've been walking through this text from Luke 4, where Jesus starts his ministry out by saying that he's been anointed to preach good news to the poor, that he's come to set the captive free, that he's come to give sight to the blind, that he's come to give liberty to the oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And today we're focusing on that. And specifically, I want to look at Isaiah 49. And in just a moment, you're going to read through that, but let me give you a little brief introduction. In the Old Testament, we see that there was something called the year of the Lord's favor, where every seventh year, God ordered his people in the seventh year to relinquish all debts, to free slaves, to not plant crops and depend on what God gave them. And this was sometimes known as the year of Jubilee. And that's an interesting point for us, because when Jesus Christ comes, it's going to change things a little bit. It's going to put us into the eternal year of the Lord's favor, where forever and ever we are in that moment in which Christ, through us, is setting the oppressed free, is relinquishing debts. And so I hope you'll check it out. Pray. Read through the scriptures, and we'll have a few questions for you to post, and then we'll come back on the backside of that and we'll discuss some things. So my wife and I just moved here about a month ago, and we decided that it was time to get into shape. So we joined a gym. I don't know if we wanted to return to our old soccer glory days, or maybe it was the fact that I was reading in 1 Corinthians that our body is supposed to be the temple of the Holy Spirit. And I was thinking, this place is a mess. So anyways, we joined a gym. We found the right price at a place. And I'll never forget our first emotion when we walked into the doors on the first time. Where if you have ever seen the show Gladiator, where normal people like you and me would try to run through an obstacle course, and these really big men and women, strong men and women, would try and take out the average person running through the obstacle course. It looked like those gladiators were working out in this gym. And so I was immediately full of insecurities, and my wife and I joked that we walk in and we feel like all eyes are on us. You know that, do you even lift, bro? Look, we got from everyone there. It wasn't fun. But the reason why I wanted to tell you this story is because sometimes church can be like that. Sometimes that we can come into a place where we feel judged immediately, where all eyes are on us, and there's the cliques and there's communities, and we're out by ourselves and we're not a part of the group. And I started to wonder about why that happens this week. And what we read in the Isaiah passage just now is that God is going to make us a covenant people. And so I wonder what that means for us. What does it mean to be a covenant people? In the Old Testament, covenant meant several different things. One example in the political realm is that a covenant could be made between a superpower nation and a small little nation. The small little nation would go to the superpower and say, I will pledge my oath, my loyalty to you. I will send you money. You can have my troops as long as you will protect me when enemies attack. We see that represented in the Bible because God sets up a covenant with his people, and God says, you will have no other person but me. You will follow me. You will not worship anyone else. And we see one other place I want to touch on. We see a covenant set up with Abram between God. The interesting thing about covenants is that when they did a covenant, they did some interesting things. They would take animals and they would sacrifice them. They would cut them in half and put the parts on the floor, on the ground. And the lesser party, the smaller nation or the smaller people, the people pledging an oath, would walk in between these animals that have been sacrificed as if to say, let me become like these animals if I don't stay loyal to you. We see something interesting in Genesis 15. And I just want to touch on that for just a second because that's going to help us understand what it means to be a covenant people. In Genesis 15, Abram is asking God, you've told me to leave my people and leave my lands and go out from here. How do I know that you'll be true to your word? How do I know that you're going to come through on your end of the bargain? And God does something really interesting. He puts Abram into a deep sleep. And then when the animals are sacrificed, instead of Abram, the lesser party, passing through the animals, it's God that passes through the animals. You see in Genesis 15, fire like a lamp passes through these animals. What could that mean? I think that in Genesis, what we see in this moment is God is pointing towards a time in Jesus Christ when Christ would be sacrificed in the place of everyone else. So instead of you and me being destroyed because we're not following the covenant, the promise that we have for God, it's Jesus that stays in our place. And so that means for us that we've been atoned for, that Christ stands in our place so that we can be a people of God. One more interesting thing that I wanted to read to you, it comes from 1 Peter, and we'll close with this. 1 Peter 2:9 says this, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. And so families, and those of you that are watching this, my question, what I want us to think about is how do we become a covenant people that is welcoming to all? How do we experience the grace that Jesus has given us and then extend that to other people so that we don't be a church that's like the gym that I joined, judging people and not being welcoming and keeping to themselves? How do you as a family lean into this promise that we are a covenant people, that God is for us and we are for God? And how do we welcome other people into this covenant? I hope you'll consider that this week. I hope you'll look into this more. There's so much to say about covenants, and there's so much in the Old Testament that we can look at that. But this is a great place to start. That we see in Genesis, God is pointing towards a time when Jesus would pay all debts for us. All right, I love you. Grace and peace. We'll see you next time.